Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Point. And if you could hear the sound of my voice, it is obvious that you are not caught up in any traffic this Monday morning. Now, it's difficult for me exactly to say if traffic is greater than usual. Sometimes I notice it on my end, but not everybody in the country is going to pass through the same routes that I pass through. However, with that said, there seem to have been some traffic problems since even before 6 a.m. this morning on the main east-west highway, the main artery of the country. And that has been going on, and it also seems to be affecting even those of us coming from, isolated valleys such as Cascade St. Anne's. And the traffic definitely in the Woodbrook area seems to also be a little bit heavier than before. However, my co-host, he could explain this better than I because he was coming through that main east-west corridor. Unfortunately, the traffic seems to have defeated his best laid plans to get here this morning. He was, ladies and gentlemen, on time. He was on a reasonable time, but the traffic was so bad it was found better for him to turn around and try to make it in time for the show via Zoom. So we are joined by my co-host via Zoom. Good morning, Keaton.
Good morning, Sean. And as I've said it before on this show, I'll say it again. If ever we're in trouble, we certainly need to hire you as an attorney at law for your explanation. But you're absolutely right with the traffic this morning. There is quite a bit of disruption, more than usual. As I left home at about 6:20, it took me almost the best part of an hour from my point of leaving home to about around Wes. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to make it in time. It's better that I actually turn around, do the show via Zoom, and rather than make it late to studio. Now, from what I've been told, there seems to have been a very bad accident this morning, which caused a backup. But what also added to the situation was the fact that, it's nothing's wrong with it, but the ceremonial opening of Parliament later today, there are traffic, not disruptions, but there are restrictions in place in Port of Spain this morning.
Well, I mean, it's the unfortunate thing with regards to traffic, particularly with a road network like ours, where any sort of minor imbalance, and I would say the blockage of a major road, but not necessarily the main road or the only road, because there are so few thoroughfares at certain parts of the country to connect major areas to major areas. Any sort of disruption there, unbalance there, just causes potentially the whole system to go up in smoke. So, I mean, could you imagine if, say, there was a major accident in Maraval towards the afternoon where people living in Maraval are trying to get home, the kind of traffic backlog that will then spill out, past shops of Maraval and Cape Hawk and maybe towards Long Circular, towards the Savannah, through St. Clair. I think I have seen similar things in the past. It's not common, but I don't know to what extent we could handle these things on a regular basis. And it goes back down to planning. You've asked, and others have asked, who does planning? What is the point of the Ministry of Planning with regards to works and transport? And I get it, some of it is hard. Maraval might be a very tricky situation because it's not as though you could just add more roads to that. But what we have seen, over the life of Talking Point from since we began, we're talking about Cocorito, we're talking about the highway, whether it is east, west, north, south. We're talking about the areas around Beetham, Laventille, the Lady Young. For whatever reason, those are the going west and east out of Port of Spain particularly seems to be some of the usual or reoccurring problems.
Well, what you just said is very important because you just mentioned basically the main arteries of the east-west corridor, whether it is you're heading into the west from the east or heading to the east from the west. However, what we can also add to that is the fact that I don't know if I'm wrong for thinking this, but is it that, and hear me out here for a second, whilst I understand that there's tradition, whilst I understand that there's regulations, we're an independent nation, and we've learned so many lessons over the last 60 years, or I would hope that we would have learned so many lessons over the last 60 years. And I'm wondering, why is it that knowing Trinidad and Tobago and knowing the traffic situation and congestion on the morning from the slightest drop of rain, why couldn't we have this ceremonial, this opening of Parliament on the weekend? Because I don't think ministers, stop working on the weekend. I mean, half of Trinidad and Tobago does, but I don't think the president stops working on the weekend. And I understand that, it's the only time that they have with their family. Sacrifice one day out of your weekend, have that ceremonial opening, so that it does not, allow for what we're seeing this morning. You don't have to have a parliamentary session. You just have the opening. The president declares Parliament as being opened, and then today you have your first sitting. But this entire situation is just adding to the chaos. It is unnecessary. It goes against efficiency. And clearly, there's not an understanding in Trinidad and Tobago that time is money. Because quite frankly, all those individuals out there not only burning gas by spending double the time trying to get to work this morning, but they're losing manpower hours as well. So it's to me,